Greetings. I'm Evan Swenson. I'm an author and a book publisher. I'm also a member of Author Masterminds, sponsors of Readers and Writers Book Club. Welcome to Readers and Writers Book Club. This is the worldwide online general membership meeting of Readers and Writers Book Club, rapidly becoming the book club destination for all readers of good books. Thanks for being here. Today's membership is represented online by Author Mastermind members and other book club members participating on Facebook Live. I hope you'll find every reader is a friend and every author is approachable. Once again, welcome to Readers and Writers Book Club. Of course, we'll be conversing about books, authors, writing, and the magic and miracle of reading. We'll also discuss the fun of reading competition when we talk about Readers and Writers Book Club's Battle of the Books. And you'll have some fun and outdoor prizes and conversation with authors and club members. We'll also let you know where to send your mailing address to receive a free autographed copy of Steve Levi's poem. Okay, let's meet today's co-hosts. Okay, good afternoon. I guess everything was working all right. It took us 2 tries, but that's okay. we arrived.
Yes,
anyway,
we have.
And so our co-hosts today, did you hear that? Not participants, not panelists, co-hosts. So in place of a big raise in salary, well, you get a title. Is that okay? Okay, so we've got 3 mastermind member authors that's co-hosted our worldwide event today. Marianne Paul, Valerie Winans, and Steve Levi. And so welcome the 3 hosts, co-hosts. Steve, why don't we just start with you today? Introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about you in less than 1 minute.
In less than 1 minute.
Yeah,
I'm Steve Levi. I'm the master of the impossible crime. I specifically write crimes where the detective has to figure out how the crime was committed before he can go after the perpetrators. In The Vanishing Greyhound, I have a Greyhound bus that disappears off the Golden Gate Bridge. And so now the detective has to figure out how you can make a Greyhound bus disappear off the Golden Gate Bridge. And you can, if you're interested, you can find sample chapters at authormasterminds.com and look for Steve Levi.
Okay, Steve, thank you. And Valerie Winans, dog's best friend. Now, why do we call you dog's best friend, Valerie?
Well, because my dog helps me write. And he helped me write my last book about traveling from Michigan to Alaska. It's all written from the dog's point of view. And soon I'll be having a new book coming out from several dogs' points of view, and written in using a mythical structure. So he's a pretty smart beagle.
Well, he's smart enough to have you sucked into thinking that he's smart anyway.
That's true.
Valerie. And then we've got Marianne Paul. Let's see, Marianne Paul's America's Lady of Supernatural Thrillers. Is that close?
That was just exactly right. Yes, you did it right.
What is this international thriller stuff in the background you've got, Marianne?
Well, this, if you like swamps and scary things, it's what I write about. So this is just kind of, I could put up other pictures that are scarier, but I thought I'd go with this one. I thought it was kind of pretty. You know, I write those things that keep people up at night.
That's why I don't spend a whole lot of time reading your short stories, though.
One of them was sweet. I took a detour off of my creepy path.
Well, the reason we're all here today is to talk about books, reading, the battle of the books, author masterminds, and just authorship in general and reading in general. The magic of reading, I guess. Marianne is going to be watching the board over on Facebook Live. So any that are there and have comments, we would really appreciate them, and we'll get them here so that our other co-hosts can answer them. They're here to back me up, so because they're smart, and all I know how to do is just push the buttons, and so I can once in a while get that right. And so if you have any questions or anything, why just put them on Facebook Live there. Marianne will pick them up, and we'll discuss them. We will want to be discussing today, of course, the Battle of the Books, sponsored by Readers and Writers Book Club. That's going to be, that's exciting. That's really, we're getting a lot more members there, and we have about 5 weeks left of the Battle of the Books for folks.
First round.
Valerie, have you heard anything in your neighborhood about the Battle of the Books, or anything in people that you're meeting with?
I have not heard much. I haven't gotten much feedback. I haven't gotten out much lately, but the Battle of the Books to me is such an unusual, fun thing. It's just perfect for right now when people are under house arrest. And so there's a variety. What I like about it is just a variety of books, and you might even win the $500 gift card. You don't have to answer or having read every single book. So it's just a great fun thing to do, and I'm hoping more people catch on.
Good. Hey, thank you. And Steve, what have you heard about the Battle of the Books in your neighborhood?
I want to jump in and say that this particular Battle of the Books is unique, is because what happens is you're getting a tremendous spread of subjects. Usually when you have the Battle of the Books, what happens is, like at schools, the teachers will come through and they'll get together and they'll choose the most boring books that they can find that doesn't upset anybody. And so everybody reads them and they go, gee, that's really nice, but I read this in 5th grade, so why am I reading it again? In our particular case, you are getting a spread of books. You're getting a little bit of horror, to my horror. You're getting an impossible crime. You're getting some thrillers. So what happens is you get a real spread. Readers right now do not really understand how blessed they are, because 15 years ago, the only books that you could buy were the books that the major publishers figured they could sell. Now what happens is, if you want to come up with a book that's different, you can go ahead and sell it. Like through Author Masterminds, if you take a look at the people that are publishing and you take a look at the subject of the book, you'll find it's a tremendous spread. So what happens is you don't have to worry about going in and just going to the mystery section and just seeing the mystery books. What happens now is that you get a tremendous spread of books. And even if you don't join the Battle of the Books, take a look at them and you will see that the spread of books, of subjects, is very, very broad.
Hey, Steve, thank you for that.
Okay.
It's Steve, you ask for something, and instead of giving you something that would be handled with a fly swatter, he serves you with a sledgehammer. Have you noticed that, Steve?
Hey, I'm a writer.
Hey, Steve, let's talk about, while we're just waiting for people to arrive, we were, I just mentioned, we arrived a little bit, about a couple of 3 minutes late because of technical difficulties. And I see that people are arriving now, and Marianne, but while we're waiting for everyone to get settled in and get their glass of water or whatever they're going to do while we're talking today, let's talk about that poem thing of yours. Tell us about that poem, Steve.
Well,
what is it?
In addition to the mysteries, what I do is what are called chapbooks. This is a chapbook. A chapbook is, there you go. A chapbook is, it's about 30 pages. And what it is, it's a mix of narrative poetry. I'm a storyteller, I'm not a writer. It tells a story. And then the story, what I did is, since it's around the Alaska Gold Rush, I went out and got photos, actual photos of the Alaska Gold Rush, and kind of mix them in. So what happens is, not only are you getting a poem and a chapbook, but you're also getting a piece of history. And when it comes to Alaska, not that many people know that much about Alaska. They know that we've got the bears and the moose and the whale, but when it comes to the Alaska Gold Rush, not that many people know about it. So what this is, it's a way of introducing the Alaska Gold Rush and narrative poetry and photographs. And if you will send me an email, I will send you a copy. You can have it as a PDF, just say you want a PDF, or if you want an actual physical copy like this, just send me your name and address, your snail mail address, and I'll drop one in the mail for you.
So you'll send it free, pay the postage and everything?
I will pay the postage myself.
and is it your poetry?
To the first 50 people, and after that, you're on your own.
And this is your poetry?
My poetry, but it's Alaska Gold Rush photos.
Valerie,
I just need to say something here, because I was able to get a copy of this chapbook, and it is wonderful. The narrative is fantastic, but the pictures, it just fits together so well. It's just very, it's a great piece of work and very entertaining, and I'm pleased to have one.
Yeah, Marianne, some of the circles that I've run in the past, when they were saying something about something that wasn't very good, they would say, that's a real piece of work. Now, you didn't mean that, did you?
Gosh, no.
Marianne, did you know that Steve was a poet?
I did.
Really?
But I just happened to have read some of his things. Steve is not only a mystery writer, you write in so many genres, really, Steve, if you think about it. He is a storyteller, not a writer. And I do want to tell you, there's some people out here who want to say some things. Renee Mirsky, who is here from Connecticut, guys, she came online. She said she went to Alaska in 1994, but never heard of the gold rush till now. So
Well, most people think the Alaska Gold Rush is the Klondike Rush. They think of Robert Service and Jack London, but the Klondike Strike is in the Yukon Territory of Canada, and it lasts 14 months. The Alaska Gold Rush lasts 60 years, starts in 1880 and pretty much ends with the Second World War. And it covers an area that's 1/5 the size of the lower 48. We are huge. If you've never been to Alaska, you have no concept of how large we are.
Who was it that had made the comment about she'd been to Alaska, Marianne?
That was Renee Mirsky.
Renee? I wonder if Renee has a concept of how large Alaska really is. Renee, if you're listening, just tell us, in your mind, how big really is Alaska compared to the rest of the United States? Another thing that we're going to be talking about today is, of course, some door prizes. These are raffle prizes, really. We're going to give away a $25 Amazon gift certificate, gift card, as it were. So if you're a member of the club, the book club, you have been receiving regular emails from Jen Rodriguez, who's handling the raffle for us today and other things. And she's been sending you emails and inviting you to participate in the raffle. And so if you've responded to her emails, well, then you'll be entered in the raffle and you'll receive the $25 gift certificate if you're successful. And then we'll also have the stringed, they call it a string pack, backpack for readers and writers, got the Readers and Writers Book Club on the back. I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. So did we hear from Renee, Marianne?
No, I haven't heard back from her yet. I did tell her I put your email out here, Steve, so people can, if they'd like to get your book, they have the email address.
Okay, good deal.
Well, let's see. Did we give Steve's email address out? I don't remember doing that.
Yeah, you did, and I just wrote it out too in the comments.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Renee did answer. She said she's not sure in relation to the rest of the country, but she understands Alaska is about 1.5 times the size of Texas. We all know this because they brag about that. Yeah.
Well, tell her that it's from Seattle to Juneau is 1,500 miles. It's about the same distance as from New York to Denver. And then from Juneau to Anchorage, and you're still not through all of Alaska, it's about the same distance. And then from Anchorage to the North Slope is about another 1,500 miles. So when you start talking about Alaska, Alaskans do not think in terms of miles. We think in terms of how long it's going to take us to fly someplace. So when you talk to Alaskans and say, how far is it? They say, well, we really don't know. We just know it's 3 hours by plane.
It's exactly, still do this to this day, living down here. I don't know how many miles it is. I just know it's 4 or 5 hours to drive it.
You know, they say that the difference between a European and an American is that a European thinks 500 miles is a long way, and an American thinks that 500 years is a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
That is a guy. I like that comparison. Yeah.
Now, what a lot of people don't understand about Alaska is that we have 5 different zones that are completely different. You talk about the Arctic, it's a desert, it has no trees, it has to have small grasses, and they don't grow much taller than your ankle. But you get down to Southeast Alaska and they have giant trees that are turned into totem poles.
Yeah.
So what happens is you talk to people about Alaska and then they say, well, you have Eskimo up there. Well, yeah, but they're way, way, way in the north. You know, and most of us don't have anything to do with them is because they're 400 miles from us. And they say, the Eskimos make totem poles. No, the Eskimos do not make totem poles.
You started to say something, Marianne, and I cut
A couple
you off.
of other comments. Syl wanted me to say that Steve speaks very well for the Author Masterminds group. So, and Readers and Writers Book Club says, decided to give you guys some facts that you already know, but other people don't, which is that Alaska's largest city is 2,500 miles from Seattle. Actually, yeah, that's right. And the next smallest city, Fairbanks, is 350 miles from Anchorage, which is Alaska's largest city. And Renee Mirsky just said, wow, that what you just talked about really puts things into perspective. And to think by the same token, Rhode Island is only about 60 miles across. No kidding. It's like night and day. Yeah, that's not very big.
Here's a little tidbit for you. If you follow the Aleutians out to the west, the Aleutians are so long, they're 1,500 miles. The last island in the Aleutian is in the eastern hemisphere. So Alaska is the most eastern state, the most western state, and the most northern state.
True story.
Not only that, Alaska is one of the only places that had active battles during the Second World War. We had the Japanese invaded Shimei and Kiska, and it was one of the bloodiest battles during the Second World War. 25% of the Americans out there were killed or injured in that battle.
This was not intended to be an Alaska program, but Steve, if there's someone from the Chamber of Commerce listening, why, I think we probably earned our dues today.
Okay,
Anyway.
all right.
Let's talk about the magic of reading. I know that we're readers. One of the things that I've learned that one of the things that I've learned about authors is that they are readers. Sometimes more than writing, they read. And so this is the Readers and Writers Book Club. And so we know that there's a lot of writers, members of the book club, that are also readers. And so we invite you that are authors, writers, to join in the conversation and participate with the Readers and Writers Book Club. Join us in your comments and how you feel about reading and those kind of things to just kind of stimulate us and show the magic of reading. Valerie, I did just like to ask you about reading. I know that you read a lot. In fact, almost every time I talk with you, you tell me something else about what you're reading, you have read, or you're going to read. What is it that you're reading right now? Could you share that with us?
Sure.
Maybe I should say, what books are you reading right now, knowing you?
Well, I am reading a couple, but one that I'm reading that's kind of interesting right now. It's an anthology of short stories by a woman named Flannery O'Connor. And the purpose of reading, to me, a book that is other than Author Masterminds, because that's some of the best writing you're going to find, is to offer a comparison. I like to compare. How does she write? You know, what is she thinking? What do I think about this short story? Could I write a short story like hers? Because she's, you know, famous. I think about all those things. When I was writing my last book, which I think will be called Remington Beagle, A Hero's Journey, I read a book by the name called The Writer's Journey, The Mythical Structure of Writing Fiction. And I used that as a model for the book Remington Beagle, A Hero's Journey, using archetypes and using mentors and having gatekeepers and having using all of those mythical structure in my writing. And it all came about because I read that book and found it so interesting and helpful. And so right now I'm trying to write like Flannery O'Connor. So you might see a short story by me.
Thank you, Valerie. Steve, do you also like Valerie? And I'm going to ask Steve, and maybe we'll get to Mary Ann too, but I want to ask the writers that are also joining us on Facebook Live that are not co-hosts here the same question. Do you also look and read other books about writing and incorporate that into your writing? Is that what you also do, Steve?
I always look for something different. I'm always looking for something different. I don't, if I walk into a bookstore, I don't just walk over to the mystery section and look there. I look every place. I do a lot of history. I do a lot of English. I'm always interested in new words and new concepts. And every time you open up a book, you can and read through, you'll find stuff that you never knew before. Words particularly, I'm fascinated by, especially because I do narrative poetry. You're always looking for a word that will rhyme with Caesar. And so you look it up in the book, and here are a whole bunch of words that rhyme with Caesar, and half of them you've never heard of before. So you have to look them up. The most important thing for me is different. When I read something, I want it to be different. And I'll do some history. And sometimes when I go to the library, I'll just go to a section that I've never been in before and just kind of wander around and trying to find something that's interesting. And I know very little about art, but I will go to the art section. Like, oh, I didn't know this. I've never heard of this guy. But the way I look at it is I'm filling my mind with information that someday, somewhere, I'm going to use. It's not like I've never read a book where I didn't walk away with something that I could use somewhere.
So Steve, we've got a lot of members of the Facebook group, not necessarily the Facebook or the Readers and Writers Club, which is separate. Mm-hmm. The group is sponsored by Readers and Writers Book Club, but we have a number of authors out there that I see regularly posted, like one recent, I'm an 18-year-old, can I write a book? And kind of that, can publish it, kind of that question. There's others that make comments about different questions about writing and publishing and those kind of things. If you had someone that you were mentoring about writing a book and they came to you for help, what would be the first thing that you would tell them to do as far as becoming a writer, an author?
Be different. We don't need one more book about, George Washington. We don't need another book about a detective that's, going through a divorce. Be very different. If you want to take a look at different, as an example, take a look at any of my short stories, because what I do is I start out with something that can't be. It can be impossible. And then I try to figure out how to make it possible. Like, for instance, toothpicks. I was flying in with Alaska Airlines and I was looking at a toothpick. And I'm saying this toothpick has no value at all. So why would anybody want to steal toothpicks? So then I will come up with a story of how toothpicks can be used in a crime. That's the kind of thing that I do. I'm trying to take something that's different. I had never read a story about anybody that stole toothpicks. I've never read a story about anybody who used toothpicks for anything, but I have a story on how you can use toothpicks in a crime.
So Steve, is this a true confession time that you stole some toothpicks from Alaska Airlines? Is that it?
No, I walked out with it and I spent a couple of days looking at it going, what can I do with this toothpick? I've always got, like Marianne, I'm afraid to ask Marianne what she dreams about, but I dream about every night I dream heists, like what do you do, with a toothpick? Most people they look at it and they'll say, well, I can't do anything with it. But that makes it different because like I said, I'm the only one out there that's got a short story on toothpicks used in a crime.
Steve, I will never look at a toothpick again the same manner, especially if I'm on Alaska Airlines. I'll think of you. Marianne, how about you? What would you tell a new author that was just getting started?
Just getting started. They've already written the book? It's an author, not just going to write? Is that what we're saying?
I guess we'd have to say writer, a wannabe author. And I say that because I have a definition, and I suspect Marianne knows what that is. As far there's writers, those are writers that just keep writing.
Right.
And then there's authors, that's a writer that's published something, published a book. So a book author is a writer that's actually published something. So let's talk about writers right now. Marianne, if you had a writer come to you, what would you tell them would be maybe the one thing that they could do to get started? Or, if you tell your story, I won't tell it.
You go ahead. You're doing good. Literally, to me, to start writing, you need to make sure you have your own space to write. That's my first thing. Usually a writer knows what they're going to write. And read the people that you want to emulate, in a way. So I read, my books are a combination of people like Stephen King and Sue Grafton and Lillian Jackson Braun, and literally mine are cozy horror books. So literally, I have to read and read to get my rhythm. So that's the first thing I tell people, read. And then the second thing I've been asked, is how do you come up with your stories, or do you outline? And I don't outline per se. I write a short version of my book. I literally sit like I'm talking to you right now and feel I project that I'm talking to somebody and that I'm writing the story down as I project it and tell them what's happening, what's going to happen in this story. And that's how mine starts. So that's why that's always worked for me. I don't know, everybody has to find their own rhythm. But people who've asked me, those are the things I've given them as tips to starting writing. And by the way, we have Karen, this is for anybody who knows it here. Karen Robinson Jacobs says she's new to the group and she reads primarily nonfiction. And she would like to know, does the group talk much about nonfiction works?
I do all the time, because anytime I write something, I want to make absolutely sure that it's got nonfiction in it. I did a story, which you can see on Readers and Writers, on an octopus that apparently stole a ring. So then I had to go in and I had to do all of the research on an octopus. And frankly, I didn't know anything about octopuses, and that's the correct term for plural, until I went in there. I feel like I don't look at myself as being an entertainer. I look at myself as being an educator. Is that when you read my short stories, you walk away with some nonfiction knowledge that's true that you didn't know before. And, truth, believe me, truth is stranger than fiction.
Aren't
Valerie?
Greg Leifer's books are nonfiction, aren't they?
Yes, they are. All of his books are nonfiction.
Fantastic nonfiction about the air industry in and around Alaska.
One of the things that I've noticed, Valerie, and I'm glad you brought that up too, is that and Steve mentioned it, that many of the authors that write this for Author Masterminds, their books are fiction, but boy, you have to draw a fine line between some of them. You take Carl Douglas's books, for an example. He's written 28 of them, and they're fascinating books. The fiction part allows you to move along and to
Yeah.
find excitement. It's not like sitting in a classroom learning something. But when you get done with one of his books, I don't care whether it's one that's 800 pages or the ones that's 96 pages, you walk away knowing, I know something now that I didn't know before about the world I live in, the political climate, the religion, the people, something you know about them. So, yeah.
I just happen to think there's another nonfiction book put out by an Author Masterminds writer called Alaska's Savage River Inside Denali National Park and Preserve. That's nonfiction. And that's
who wrote that, Valerie?
That's a very good book as well.
Yeah.
Well, if you're into flying, you can take a look at my book, Cowboys of the Sky, which is a history of bush pilots.
Sure.
And that is all
nonfiction.
nonfiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Valerie, you snuck that in, didn't you?
did.
About Savage River Campground, and you were a host there.
Yes, my husband and I were there for 2 seasons. It was an amazing experience.
In Denali National Park.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Okay. Well, this is the conversation is the kind of conversation I like, because it just brings everybody's to the front, makes you talk about something that you may not have talked about earlier. So as I started this conversation, I said, this is the magic of reading. So let me ask a question for those at home on the Facebook Live. If you were to make a statement of what is the magic of reading, what would you say? For you, what is the magic of reading? And now that I've put that out, now I'm going to ask the 3 co-hosts the same question. Steve, what is the magic of reading for you?
It's taking me someplace that I've never been before. And that's why I go and get something that's completely different, even if I'm wandering into the library to a section that I'd never seen before. I walked over to the math section one day and pulled out a book, and it was a history of zero. And I'm not a mathematician or a scientist. I know nothing about zero at all. And, it was hard to get through some of the book. I didn't read the whole book, but I read the introduction and the first couple of chapters. And the history of math is absolutely fascinating. And I'm going, wow, I never knew this. And every time I look at Roman numerals, I try to figure out what's the number here. And then I find out it was far more sophisticated than I ever thought it was. And it's something I never knew before. And I'm always interested in learning something new.
So your magic is learning by reading.
Right.
And I suspect then by your writing, because you do the research, then that same thing happens. That your magic then is for both reading and writing is the learning, the knowledge that you receive.
Right. And there are certain authors that I go back, anytime I'm having trouble with paragraphs and stuff like that, there are certain authors I go back and look at and say, this guy actually put a paragraph together. And you look at it and you go, he really did a good job. And some of these people are long gone. They're gone by a century. But good writing is forever. It is forever, because when I open up a book and I take a look at it, some of these people died in the 20s. So, 100 years ago, they died 100 years ago.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Valerie, what about you? What is the magic of reading in Valerie Winans' life?
Well, I think Steve just kind of hit on something that thinking about a book like, for example, Anna Karenina. It's considered one of the best books ever written in all time. And if you read that book, it takes you back to that time in Russia. You are there, you're experiencing what those people lived and knew. And so I think that's always, to me, very interesting. And of course, I have to agree with Steve again on the history part of it. It's all of that history and learning. Absolutely. It's the magic. It's the magic.
Okay, thank you. Marianne, now I'll ask you, and also then the people at Facebook Live, what's the magic of reading for Marianne. And if you've got some comments over there, why you decide whether you want to, you be first or they first, or however you want to put that together. Marianne, if you unmute your microphone, we'll be able to hear you.
I thought I had unmuted, sorry. If I've got a couple I'd rather read and then I'll say how I feel, what the magic of reading is for me. But from Renee Mirsky, I have reading during times when I plow through a book and get a real flow going can make me forget where I am. It's as if one enters another world. You get transported somewhere else. That's true. And then your Virginia Swenson says, except people are answering so quickly, I'm missing people. It is an escape from her own life into somewhere else. And Mary Flint says the magic of reading for her is visiting places and living lives that I could never experience in real life. Going back in time to the ages of knights or coward, I think she means forward into possible futures or a world that are not like ours at all. Rebecca Wexler, I can't talk, says immersing myself in another life than my own or educational purposes. And Leanne Neshat says reading allows a time of peace.
So there is magic. So,
there's such magic.
Yeah. So Marianne, do you have something in your own personal life that is a magic that hasn't been covered here?
Well, no. I mean, for me, the magic of reading is exactly what's been said. I literally go away when I'm in a good book. And my idea is to get into another world and get away from everything that's going on around me. So I don't read a lot of nonfiction. I read fiction because I want to be in another world and experience those imaginary characters that I enjoy.
Is there anyone here that's started reading a book in the evening and all of a sudden discovered that it was morning?
Oh yeah,
that would be me.
Well, that's a great book. It's a great book that what happens is a short story or anything like that you start reading and suddenly realize that 3 hours have gone by.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, for those people who are readers, yes, there are boring books out there, but the thing to do is that if you start reading the book and it's boring, put it away. Go find a good one. I mean, it's, you know, there are a lot of great books out there, and you don't have to be stuck reading something that just, oh, this is boring. Well, fine. If it's boring, put the book away and get another one.
That's right. I literally have, if I pick up a Stephen King novel, and very few of his, some of mine don't really like at all. But he has one called Insomnia that's approximately 800 pages long. And I've read it twice, and I've gone to a third round. If I start reading that book, I do not go to bed until 4 or 5 in the morning until it's finished, even though it's the third or fourth time I've read it. That one just pulls me directly in, and, you know, then I don't get any sleep, and I'm too old for that now. So I just have to really be careful what I get into.
Well, that's interesting. I would share that I get the opportunity to read books before they're published. And some of them we don't publish. Some of them I can't read because of language and content.
You know, for people that are in the Readers and Writers Club, when you go to Author Masterminds, you can read sections of the book before you even buy it. So if you want to see if this book is interesting, what you do is you just go through and take a look at some sample chapters. All that costs you is time. And the important thing is finding a book that you want to read. You know, and, you know, by getting a couple of chapters out of 6 or 7 books, you can go through and say, oh, well, this one is good. And the other one's just, you know, they're not my cup of tea. But you got a chance of actually looking and reading. You know, when I went into the bookstore, you know, you either bought the book or you didn't. And maybe you could look through and maybe I look at the back. But most of the times what happens is, you know, I'm wondering, I like the library a lot better because I don't know what it is that I want to read that day. I just arrive.
Okay.
I have a couple more comments here, guys.
Yes, please.
Good question. This is a really good one. Andy Anderson, Alaska author, says it's all about relaxation for him. Those pictures they paint with words, I find very interested and I traveled to many different places I would never be able to in real life. Rebecca says she used to get in trouble as a child because she was so into books she wouldn't go to sleep. I couldn't hear my mother in the same room, she said.
Mary Ann, who was it that was interested in nonfiction? Anyway, whoever it was,
you've muted.
That was interested.
Mary Ann, you're muted.
I know, because I'm looking for her name.
Yeah, whoever it was, it's okay, but because she's still listening, I hope.
Karen Robinson Jacobs, that's who that was.
Okay, all right, very well. You, that Alaska author, Andy Anderson, was that who it was that you called in? Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you would be interested in his book. So any Author Mastermind member might want to listen to that if they're interested in Alaska. His title of his book is Alaska Bush Cop in Seldovia, Alaska. And Seldovia is a wonderful little town in Alaska that never has any crime or corruption or anything like that going on, unless you're the Alaska Bush Cop, and you may want to find out about that. So Andy, thanks for joining us today, and hope that little plug helped out with your book.
Well, for those of you that are in the lower 48, Alaska, you can only drive to Alaska. You can only drive to the major cities, Anchorage, Fairbanks, Kenai, and those places. The rest of the places you could have to reach by airplane, and that's called the bush. So when they talk about the bush, what you're talking about places where people live where they can't drive, they have to fly in.
One of the things before we end the discussion today, I'd like to just throw out, and to both the panelists or the co-hosts here, and also to those Facebook Live that are there. And that is that it's been suggested that we have a monthly get acquainted with an author, and that we pick a book that the author can join us, and we read that book for a month, or read at it, or however we want to do it. And then the author will get together with us on a meeting similar to this, on a Zoom meeting, which they've now become popular. And we'll have the author there, and the people can then get together in a small group, if it would be. It could be 6 or 8 or 10, whatever you would decide to do. And so pick a book, if you would, and then let us know what that book is. We'll get in touch with the author, and we'll put together a little group that we can read the book. And then we can talk about it, and we'll have the author there that can talk about his book, what happened, and you can ask any questions then about the book. So it's easy for us if you pick an Author Mastermind author, because we can touch them. And some of the other books that maybe Publication Consultants has published, but don't be restricted to that. You probably want to pick one that's still living, however, to talk with.
That would be good, yes.
Yeah, that would be helpful. But so anyway, let us know. So you Author Mastermind authors, the same with you. You're readers, you already told me that. And you have the magic of reading, you already told me that. And so that magic can be achieved by any of the Author Mastermind authors, I'm sure, but others. And so pick a book, and let's get a group together, 4, 5, or 6, read the book together and communicate together. And then we'll get together on a meeting like this and discuss that with the author. Does that sound like something that you'd be interested in?
Yeah.
Sure, sounds great.
I'm
Are they
available
going
if
to
you need.
email you to let you know, or how are they going to contact?
Well,
to get this?
we've got the Facebook Live group, or the Facebook Readers and Writers Book Club Facebook group here, and let's put them on there. So I heard that name, Virginia Swenson. I'm familiar with her. Her and I are related by birth.
That'll do it.
And so, Virginia, let's hear what book that you would like to read with a group of authors, or writers, or readers. And let's get together and have a little meeting a month from now and talk together with them. And you pick the book, and we'll see if we can get together a group that would like to do that. And then also we'll get together with the author. So Virginia, it'd be helpful if you'd pick an Author Mastermind author, but pick someone that we could touch and reach out to. Anyway, and that goes with anyone that's listening here today. Let's do that. Okay, any last words that any of the co-hosts would like to leave with the group here today? And Marianne, you just kind of check out everything at the end and see if there's any final comments there or anything you'd like to do. And then if you'd say your parting remarks after we hear from Valerie, and we'll hear from Steve first. So your final words today, Steve, to this group.
Read a book, change your life.
Okay, thank you. Valerie?
Hey, I can't beat that, but I'm wondering when we're going to do the drawing for the backpack or for the how does it work for the Amazon gift card?
Okay, we don't do a drawing for that. That's automatic. We have we have a service that does that.
When will we know?
And so the winner will be announced on the Facebook group. Jen Rodriguez, publisher's assistant, lines that all up, and she has this company that keeps us honest. And so everybody's goes in, and then it's a computerized drawing that they pick somebody out of it, and so they'll pick someone that will receive the $25 Amazon gift certificate, and someone that will receive the backpack.
Awesome.
And then we'll mail the backpack, and we'll of course, Amazon will deliver the $25 gift certificate. And of course, we hope that whoever wins it goes and buys one of the Author Mastermind books, but it's up to you. You can do what you want. It's your $25. But it's all automatic, and it's only available to Readers and Writers Book Club members. So if those that are here today that are members of the Readers and Writers Book Club, they probably got here because they've been getting invitations to this meeting for several days. And I know that everyone that's a member received a reminder 1 hour before the meeting started today. And that's the intent anyway, and it looks like that's how it goes. So Valerie, was that your final word, or do I have a question?
You know me, I'm always looking for prizes. So that was my.
Oh, yeah. You want the free stuff. I got that. So anything you'd like to.
It's so much fun. I love it.
Okay, thanks, Valerie. Marianne, is there anyone out there that's got the final parting word, and then you, and we'll end.
Well, Virginia said it sounds good, and Karen Robinson Jacobs said this was a good idea, this reading and having the author on. And for my my last words, I'm just going to use what I do on Real Ghost Chatter podcast, which is, may the wind always be at your back and the sun on your face and the good Lord walk beside you.
Okay. All right.
That's a good one. I like that. Okay, well, I'll just have to end that with saying it's been fun being here. We'll do this again next month. The last Tuesday of the month is the worldwide meeting of Readers and Writers Book Club, and we'll see you next month, the last Tuesday, 6 o'clock New York time or Eastern Daylight Time. And in the meantime, keep in touch.